to everyone. First of all, I would like to say that I'm honored to be here today, and I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the organizer for inviting me. To see so many people gathered here is very impressive, and I imagine for having talked with some of us that we have different specific professions here. Even within the museums I'm going to talk about, we face different realities. That is why I wanted to be pragmatic and keep it simple to the core, because beyond our differences of means and context, we share intentions. I will talk about museums. They are conservatories, places where objects produced by human or nature are preserved from the vicissitude of times for their historical, archaeological, artistic, scientific, technical, or aesthetic value. In short, we preserve material and immaterial objects because we find them remarkable in some way, and we want to pass on this remarkable quality to future generations. There is a dual approach here, which may seem contradictory, of one, isolation and accumulation, protection, conservation, and two, of sharing, making available, understandable. This dual approach exists wherever museum exists. In France, for you to understand where I speak from, those two ambitions have historically been taken to the extreme. Long-term, very long-term preservation was ensured as early as 1568 with the Edict of Moulins, which separated some royal assets, originally real estate or part of the crown jewels, and recognized them as belonging not to the king personally, but to the whole kingdom. This was the first recognition that certain treasures belonged to the entire nation and could not be sold or given away. There lies the origin of the current status of French museum collections. Their inalienable nature, which protects them by law from being sold or dispersed, and this is the first and most important way of safeguarding cultural heritage for us French people. This is what has enabled French collections to be so rich and helped to protect throughout time. Concerning sharing, the second cardinal objective for museum, we have had individual initiatives in France starting in the 16th century, but things became systematic during the French Revolution at the end of the 18th century. Museums that were before under royal patronage became at that time the property of the nation and were made accessible to all with an ideal inherited from the period we call Enlightenment in the early 18th century of universality and equal access. This universality applied to the public, but it also developed quite rapidly to the collections themselves. Today, it seems to me that museums around the world, regardless of their individual or national history, have this dual focus. The role of museum in sharing is taking on a more important dimension than before, thanks to progress in education, meaning intellectual access to a wider audience, scientific advances in technical analysis, materials, and dating, which provide more in-depth access to the works, and the development of means of communication and network for broader technical and virtual access. It is this sharing, I believe, that will ensure the preservation of heritage in the long term. To preserve heritage and establish culture as a standalone goal in the post-2030 Global Development Agenda, we must, I think, as cultural professionals, think collectively on an international level. I know this may sound naive and optimistic, but I strongly believe that if we want to achieve this kind of goals, we must first allow ourselves to dream big. I think we all face the same challenges of illicit trafficking of cultural property, political dangers like wars, vandalism, etc., disinformation, manipulation, and radicalization of opinions. And last but not least, we face also the challenge of the direct or indirect impact of climate change on heritage conservation. Museums have tremendous potential to welcome different communities and build resilient cultural identities. Why? Because museums play different roles for each category of people, and their role changes over a lifetime depending on the age and trajectory of every person. It is, among so many other things, a place of wonder and early socialization for young children, a place of inspiration for artists and creative people, a database, repository, and source of analysis for historians, material scientists, and technician scientists. It is a place of learning, a place of reflecting on one's own cultural identity. It is a place, in fact, where everyone can encounter alterity, whether it be chronological, geographical, or sociological. It seems to me that our role is to create the conditions and encourage dialogue to foster that resilient cultural identity. First, we have to bring dialogue between us, heritage professionals from all countries, to share concerns and recipes. And in that matter, I'm really happy that in France we will soon welcome young curator training from Indonesia, thanks to our esteemed Indonesian colleagues and the French Institute in Indonesia in the next month to come. We have to encourage dialogue also between different professional specialists, and here I would like to talk about artists, academics, engineers, technicians. All of them can benefit from one another, particular insights, and give new evidences and new questions. We have to encourage dialogue also between those specialists and the publics, because these kind of confrontations bring new questions for the scholars and the joy of sharing last scientific discoveries for the public. And last but not least, we have also to foster dialogue between the different kind of people that are attending our museums. We used to think at them as group because they may have physiological, social, geographical, different backgrounds, and we like to work to welcome them very specifically. But beyond this specific welcoming to get more inclusive, we have to think of not discriminating and keeping in mind the broader objective, which is to foster a global sense of belonging. This multi-leveled dialogue creates innovation, I think, particularly for artists from different disciplines, like we just saw, theater, music, dance, and various collective performance. This multi-level dialogue creates understanding and respect. It is especially true when we think about welcoming different spiritualities. Museums are widely distributed throughout the world. They are a recognizable landmark, and they share the same values of dialogue and openness enshrined in International Code of Ethics that we all adhere to. Universal museums are an essential element in deepening dialogue between cultures. There is nothing worse than everyone staying in their own corner and prejudices, nothing more dangerous for the challenges we face. Their universal distribution, on the other hand, seems to me as an indispensable element in the balance and the efficiency of this dialogue. In short, I personally advocate for the universal distribution of universal museums, and as a consequence, for ethical stewardship in conserving Southeast Asian artifacts wherever they are. On a personal level, I also believe that mid- and long-term cross-deposits between museums are an excellent way of ensuring the safety of art objects in an unstable world, whether it be in terms of politics, natural disaster, or even incidents that can occur anywhere on the planet. It also facilitates access to original works for scientists and experts from all countries. Technical advances in documentation, contextualization, recording, digital reproduction are quite extraordinary today, and we saw that with the first intervention. For example, the exhibition on Khmer bronzes that is now held at Guimet Museum and will travel to Minneapolis was the occasion for scientific specialists from France and Cambodia to analyze elementary traces to the great Vishnu sculpture that was under restoration in France at that time. These analyses allowed to have a precise idea of the original polychromy of the sculpture and helped the 3D
Evangelist,
reconstitution
time is almost up. Just a kindly reminder.
By an engineer along with an art historian who proposed a very probable and amazing original aspect of the god to the public that can be seen on screen in the exhibition, and that is really different from the archaeological artifact we see today. I believe that beyond the irreplaceable human encounters, the use for recordings and multimedia productions to provide context, the use of high-quality facsimile could be developed. Documentation and contextualization must respect both scientific needs and communities of origin of the pieces' values, when these are known or still exist. International collaboration is essential to achieve these goals. Facsimile can give the general public access to very important but not so well-known works of art, avoid the need to travel to certain fragile masterpieces, and also can be of great educational value and serve as a reference state for long-term conservation. In conclusion, we have to keep our mind as open as possible to dialogue, because dialogue will give rise to creativity among artists, industries, etc. Dialogue allows understanding and respect. Dialogue gives rise to the possibility of recognizing past blunders, injustices, and the desire to resolve conflicts. And finally, and more broadly, dialogues and exchanges will give rise for love for heritage and the subsequent desire to preserve it for the future. I will be really happy to work with you. Thank you very much. Terima kasih.